Right now, across Europe, only about 11% of people see a friend in person on any given day. Not once a week. Once a day. That number comes from the OECD's own 2025 data, and it's one of the clearest signs yet of something researchers have started calling a loneliness epidemic among the young. A global survey the same year found that 80% of Gen Z respondents said they'd felt lonely at some point in the past 12 months, compared to just 45% of baby boomers. And according to the World Happiness Report, the share of young adults worldwide who say they have no one to count on has climbed from 14% in 2006 to 19% today, nearly 1 in 5 young people. In a world more digitally connected than any before it, something has clearly changed. The question worth asking isn't just what changed. It's why a species that survived for hundreds of thousands of years by staying close to other people suddenly finds closeness so hard, at exactly the moment technology promised to make staying close easier than ever. Start with the most visible symptom: young people are dating less than any generation on record, and pulling back from the apps built to help them do it. Tinder lost close to 600,000 users in a single year. Surveys of college-age daters found that a majority who'd tried dating apps had already quit them entirely, deleting profiles that once felt like a basic requirement of modern romantic life. In one widely cited Hinge dataset, more than a third of users said the apps had left them feeling more pessimistic about love, not less, exhausted rather than hopeful after every swipe. This isn't just about romance. UCL researchers described it bluntly in 2025. An entire generation appears to be forming fewer close relationships later, and with more anxiety attached to the process than any generation studied before them. Friendships are being deprioritized too, not just partners, as the same pressures that make dating exhausting seem to be draining energy out of platonic bonds as well. To understand why, it helps to go back to a number that has nothing to do with apps at all. In the 1990s, Oxford anthropologist Robin Dunbar noticed something odd comparing primate brains, species with bigger neocortices, the part of the brain handling complex thought, consistently lived in bigger social groups, as though tracking relationships was itself an expensive cognitive task with real limits. Extrapolating the pattern to humans, Dunbar arrived at a now famous figure: about 150 stable relationships is roughly the ceiling of what a human brain can meaningfully track. Not 150 acquaintances. 150 people whose relationship to you, and to each other, you can actually hold in your head at once. That number breaks down further into smaller, tighter layers: roughly 5 people you're truly close to, 15 good friends, 50 a wider circle, 150 the outer edge of anyone you'd call a real social tie. Dunbar's own follow-up research found that digital platforms don't expand this ceiling at all. They just flood the outer rings with thousands of weak connections, while the inner ones, the ones that actually matter, quietly starve for lack of the attention they used to reliably get. Here's the part that explains why texting 100 people doesn't feel like knowing any of them. Oxytocin, the neuropeptide most closely tied to trust and social bonding, doesn't respond much to text on a screen, no matter how many messages get exchanged in a day. It responds to eye contact, to tone of voice, to touch, to shared laughter, to simply being in a room with another body, cues that evolved over an enormous stretch of time as reliable signals that another person could actually be trusted. A 2025 review in the journal Neuroscience Biobehavioral Reviews found that text-based digital communication produces an oxytocin response barely distinguishable from having no contact with another person at all, because the sensory cues that trigger real bonding, voice, face, presence, simply aren't there on a screen, no matter how warm the words themselves might be. Psychologist John Cacioppo's evolutionary theory of loneliness adds the other half of the picture: when those social needs go chronically unmet, the body treats it as a genuine threat, activating the same stress axis that once helped an isolated human stay alert to danger out on the margins of the group, where predators and rival groups posed a very real risk. Loneliness, in other words, isn't just an unpleasant mood to be managed away. It's a very old alarm system, doing exactly what it evolved to do, going off for a very modern reason it was never designed to recognize, which brings the story back to the apps themselves, and a concept evolutionary psychologists call mismatch, a trait that made perfect sense in one environment causing real problems in a completely different one, because the environment moved far faster than the biology adapting to it. For nearly all of human history, the realistic pool of potential partners a person encountered was small, maybe a few dozen people across an entire lifetime, drawn from the same village or the same few hundred individuals within walking distance. Human mate choice psychology, the instincts that decide who feels promising and who doesn't, evolved entirely inside that narrow constraint. dating apps blow past it by several orders of magnitude, presenting more potential partners in a single evening than an ancestral human might have met across years. Research on choice overload shows the predictable result: more options, not better decisions. People searching longer, evaluating more options they'll never actually choose. Growing more dissatisfied with whoever they do pick, and reporting more regret afterward, exactly the pattern found in a 2020 study on what researchers termed a rejection mindset that builds up under an abundance of choice, a kind of fatigue that gets worse the more options a person is shown, not better. Some research suggests the effect lands even harder on women, who already tend to be more selective in mate choice, facing a flood of options that makes every single choice feel simultaneously overwhelming and disposable, easy to reject and hard to commit to. It isn't that modern people have gotten worse at dating. It's that the environment now asks a Stone Age matching system, tuned for a village of a few hundred faces, to process a scale of choice it was never built to handle in the first place. Europe adds its own layer on top of this global pattern. Economic pressure delays the milestones: moving out, financial independence, a stable job, that once created natural opportunities to meet people through shared context, a neighborhood, a workplace, a long stretch of adult independence lived among the same rotating cast of familiar faces. Fewer of those third places, the cafes, clubs, and casual gathering spots sociologists have long pointed to as where real relationships used to form almost by accident, survive economic pressure the way apps do. Rents rise, casual venues close, and the unstructured hours young people once spent simply existing around other people shrink year over year. When the accidental, low-stakes version of meeting people erodes, what's left is the high-stakes, deliberately curated version: an app, a profile, a decision made from a handful of photos, exactly the version research suggests the human brain is least equipped to handle well. The easy, ambient kind of social contact disappears first. The exhausting, high-pressure kind is what's left standing to take its place. None of this means the instinct itself is broken. If anything, the discomfort so many young Europeans report is closer to a working alarm than a malfunctioning one. A very old system correctly detecting that something about its environment has drifted far from what it evolved to expect, and reacting exactly the way it's supposed to. For most of human history, finding people to trust wasn't a decision made from thousands of profiles, weighed and compared like options on a menu. It was simply a feature of being alive in one place, surrounded by the same faces, long enough for real bonds to form without anyone having to try particularly hard at all. That doesn't mean there's an easy fix. Robin Dunbar's own research offers a clue, though. The strongest predictor of relationship quality isn't how many people you know. It's how much undistracted in-person time you spend with the small handful who matter most. 11% of Europeans seeing a friend on any given day is a low bar. But it might also be the most encouraging fact in this whole story: the fix was never complicated. It's the same one it always was.